begin with the first part of Revelation 13:1, right, where our first beast shows up. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. What? Like what are you talking about, John? Like, you know, did you have a little wine this evening? Because what's he talking about here? All right, so how do we get this to be what it actually means, but in a way that we can understand it much clearer, much simpler? All right, so for the most part, think of it as a cipher, right? We need to find and replace the key words with their proper match. So how do we find the proper match? Well, if it's not given in the book of Revelation itself, then we will always find it somewhere in the law and the prophets, a given interpretation. All right? So as an example, we'll start with the word beast. It's not in Revelation. There's no definition of Revelation for beast, but the book of Daniel tells us, Daniel 7:17, these great beasts which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Then Daniel 7:23, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth. Simple, right? A beast is a kingdom. Right? Very simple. Or an empire. This history has shown us. Anyone who studied prophecy knows this. So let's see what we have now. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw an empire rise up out of the sea. All right, still kind of weird. But we see an empire is rising up. That makes sense. So let's see what the seas are. What is the water? In Revelation 17:15, the angel gives us a definition. The waters are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Right? The waters equal seas, people, nations, and tongues. Very simple. And we do have to have some discernment, as an example here with water, because as an example in Revelation 22:1, it has river of water of life. Okay? Which looks to be talking about spirit and water, as opposed to people. But our surrounding subject matter will indicate for us which is to be used. All right, so let's see what we have now. We'll place seas with peoples, nations, and languages. What do we have? And I stood upon the sand of peoples, and I saw an empire rise up out of the multitudes of nations and tongues. That makes some more sense. The empire rising up out of nations and tongues. All right, that makes a lot of sense. Let's now see the last key word here, sand. What's this? Revelation 28, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Or the number is the sand. All right, sand is a very large number, obviously, because the sand of the seas, no, we're not going to count it. All right, so let's see what we got from Revelation 13:1. We have, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. And I stood over many multitudes of peoples, and I saw an empire rise up out of the peoples of many nations and languages. Or even more simply, as I stood over many multitudes of peoples and nations of many languages, I saw an empire rise up out of them. I don't know if it can get any clearer than that, and 3 easy steps, and we transformed that confusing portion of that sentence into something completely understandable. Okay? So now that we understand what we're looking at here, let's see if we can figure out who this empire is. Who is this empire that rose up out of many peoples? Right? We have an empire that will not be from one specific people. An example would be the Roman Empire. They were Romans. The Greek Empire. They were Greeks. So forth. Okay? It was one people's, and it was their empire. This one will rise up out of many different peoples, nations, and tongues. Okay, so it's going to rise. It's going to be from a bunch of nations, and it's going to rise up from all of them, right? And it's going to get its power from the dragon. All right, and this is all in Revelation 13. The power comes from the dragon. It says it got its power from the dragon, which in fact has happened, which also clearly implies that the dragon is an empire itself. Right? An empire doesn't get power from a non-empire. So we got a dragon empire giving power to this empire, rising up out of many different nations. And many people have gone through Revelation and have shown us who this first empire is in Revelation 13 by matching all the points of description we find in Daniel and in Revelation chapters 13, 17, 18. So we're not going to spend any time on that. You can go on the internet and find this stuff fast, who this is. We're going to just come right out and say it, but we're going to work our way through it real quick. What we're going to do is we're going to show how the dragon, the first beast, and the second beast are in fact one and the same power by way of multiple identical marks and characteristics. And because with these being seen, the image empirically will tie all three of these together into one for us. All right? And for those who can discern it, that the dragon in chapter 12 is the Roman Empire, or Satan's kingdom, who's in power when Messiah was born in flesh. Right? He brings him up on the mountain and says, I'm going to give you all these kingdoms. Well, Rome ruled all the kingdoms. So, we also know Rome ruled when he was caught up under God, also in chapter 12. So, the Dragon Empire is the Roman Empire. This is also a well-known fact. Okay, so history shows us that Rome, the Dragon Empire, gave its power and seat and all of its authority to the bishop of the Holy Roman Church, which is the first beast empire. The first beast empire got its power from the Dragon Empire, which is exactly what happened. The Emperor of Rome handed over the scepter to the bishop. Boom. That's where the seat is now. And when the Holy Roman Church got that scepter, it was already established among many peoples and nations and tongues. So when it was given that seat of power and authority, it was already established through all these different nations, and it rose up in all these multitudes of nations and peoples and tongues. All right? Which is also why they worship the dragon and they worship the beast in Revelation 13. Again, 13:4, I believe it is. They're one in the same pantheon of worship, and they rule from the same exact seat of power. So if you're worshiping one, you're obviously worshiping the other by default. Right? We know this. So, we know who the empire is, the first empire, or the first beast in chapter 13 is. So what does this first beast of the Holy Roman Empire look like? Right? Because if we're looking for the image of the beast, the second beast is to make an image of the first beast. We need to know what the first beast looks like, right? And as the key is repeatedly shown us, it's quite obvious, really. If we just look at the first beast of the Sea of Rome, what do we see? Here's a seat of Rome right now, known as the Vatican. And from the air, we could see St. Peter's right here. St. Peter's Square, just to the right of it. And oddly, the two together look like a key going into a keyhole, don't they? But that's not what we're here to see. What we're here to look at is this right here. All right? We have this dome building here. This is an Egyptian obelisk smack dab in the middle of St. Peter's Square. And off to the right here, we have a pentagram with a pentagon shape within it. And here's a couple landmarks. We got the Tiber River and Capitoline Hill down here. So, here's the image of the beast. Where on earth not only resembles this layout, but it's almost an exact copy. an image, if you will. I often thought if the Holy Spirit had the word mirror in front of image, a lot of people would have seen it. So let's take a look. Do you recognize this place? Well, you should. It's Washington, D.C. So how does this match Rome? Right? How does this match Rome? Just like this. Here's our dome, Capitol building. Here's our Washington Monument, Egyptian obelisk. Here's our Pentagon. Same shapes. And the Tiber Creek used to be right here, and it branched off through the city in multiple directions. And it's still there under the ground. You can go on the Tiber Creek tours, in fact. And many have shown the streets of New Washington to be laid out in occult fashions with, square and compass and all these things. But that distracts us from the real sight to be seen, which is this image. All right, it's laid into it, and so we kind of trying to see the trees through the forest, kind of thing. If I said that correctly, and it goes much deeper than this. So let's see how deep this image goes. Let's just go look at it right here. All right, so here we go. The image obviously speaks for itself. There's obviously the same buildings, the same layout. There's no questioning that. Same locations, too. So, let's see how else they match up. As you see here, I've thrown in some other characters from the book of Revelation so we could see who's actually who. And I know some are probably confused by this right now, but we'll solidify all these characters before we finish today. All right. So it's going to be clear by the time we're done that there's only two characters to worry about. And these two are working as one for one purpose, and that's to destroy Yah's people and to trample on his word. So let's expose this creature. All right, so here's some geographic matches. All right, we got the capital Rome. Is in Rome, Italy. And look at this, 400 acres originally named Rome, Maryland. Wow. All right, Tiber River runs through it. Tiber River runs through it. Tiber Creek runs through it. Sits on 7 hills. Sits on 7 hills, commonly referred to as the city of 7 hills. Has 7 hills, and Capitol Hill appears to have the nickname 7th Hill. Sits on Capitoline Hill. Sits just adjacent to Capitoline Hill. Has Capitol Building, our dome, on Capitol Hill or Capitoline Hill. Here's some ruling classes with another shockingly odd coincidence. Transferred their rulership to the bishop who continued the empire as a Holy Roman Empire. And continuing the succession of rulership, the Pope is now Pope Francis in 2020. The land that was named Rome, Maryland, was originally owned by Francis Pope. Huh? First Pope to ever speak in Congress, and this is the guy that owned the land originally. I don't think that's the Holy Spirit trying to nail it down for us, but there's more. Called emperors fathers of empire. Pope means father. Those who started and ruled the Washington Empire are called what? Fathers. Founding fathers, right? We have the Roman Empire Senate. The Senate, which is called the Roman Curia, which is what the Roman Empire Senate was called. And we have the Senate. What else do we got? A country speaks through its laws, right? Which is why we use phrases such as the law says, or that's not what the law says, or how the statute must speak directly to, and phrases like this, what the law speaks, right? So the Roman Empire's language is Latin. This is the language of the dragon. This is their language. The Vatican's language is Latin. Laws are called canons. Washington laws or the government's language is in Latin, therefore speaks like a dragon. The language of Washington, D.C. is the language of the dragon, with some states having canons. Right? Awful lot of coincidences. Let's see what else. Eagle is a symbol of the Roman god Zeus. Eagle equals resurrection and renewal. Eagle is national symbol. You go to jail, you kill one. Jupiter is also symbolized as an eagle. And the Vatican converted the statue of the god Jupiter, which is who they're talking about here, to St. Peter. And they don't hide it. Everyone continues to worship it. They're bowing down to the statue of Jupiter in the Vatican. The Vatican's not hiding it. And then what do we have here? We have a white mass, a blue mass, and a red mass. White mass, blue mass, and a red mass. Coincidence? I'm going to go with no. Here's some more. Goddess worship. Virgin Mary is goddess worship. That's their queen of heaven. Washington, D.C. sits between the Virgin, and Mary land. Sits between the Virgin and Mary. Has Goddess of Freedom on top of the Capitol building. Saturnalia, birth of the unconquered sun, December 25th. We all know that day. The Vatican has Mary the Anointed Mass, or Mary Christ Mass, or Mass of Mary the Anointed. Okay. Washington changed Mary Christ Mass, or United States is changed to Merry Christmas. Merry Christ Mass. Merry Christmas. This is not a stretch. That's where it came from. They got Ishtar, Aphrodite, and Venus. Vatican has Ishtar and Easter. Same day, same goddess worship. And United States, Washington, national holiday, right? Or well celebrated, I should say. Everything closes. See, we got Cupid, God, St. Valentine's Day, and then we have Valentine's Day with Cupid here. And of course, we have sun worship. We have sun day worship. No, we have sun worship. Drop the day. What do you have? Same thing here. Drop the day. What do you have left? Sun worship. Anybody says otherwise is fooling themselves, and I recommend don't doing it. Don't do it. Sorry. All right, let's move on. All right, so May Day is a festival. Is to pay homage to Flora, the goddess of fruit and flowers. Obviously, Flora for flowers. The month of May is dedicated to Mary. A focus for the 1st of May. Catholics wear what? Blossoms, flowers in honor of Mary. Wearing flowers on May Day. What a coincidence. Let's see. Here's a obscure one that most don't know. Loyalty Day is on May 1st each year. It's a special day for people to reaffirm their loyalty to the United States and to recognize the heritage of American freedom. We'll see where that's from in a second. It also falls on the same day as what? Dragon Speaking Day? Law Day in the USA? Okay, what else? Libertas was a Roman goddess and embodiment of liberty. Statue of her is on the Capitol building and a massive one in New York Harbor. The world knows that. Liber, Festival of Liberalia. March 17th is associated with free speech. Free speech. Second law is free speech. This is not something new. Look at way back when they were doing it. Again, these are not coincidences. And one last one we'll look at here. As we know, pantheon of gods and goddesses, the Roman Empire. And many know that the Vatican converted the names of gods and goddesses to their days of worship. And their days of worship to worship of saints. Such as Venus symbolized as a fish. Think about that. And her day is Friday. And the Catholics worshippers only eat fish on Fridays for several weeks before Ishtar or Easter celebrations. Okay? Washington, D.C. government buildings are covered in a pantheon of Roman gods and goddesses. And no one can argue this. And they'll fling in a president statue and a painting of what someone will call Moses in there, just to try to make it look biblical. But Moses ain't hanging out with Zeus and those clowns, I assure you. So, we've seen the image. We've seen a lot of interlocking details of their personalities. There's no doubt they're the same systems and the same creations. All right? But who said it? Who said in Revelation 13:14, sorry, I got a typo there, to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast? Who said that? I'll hide that right there. Right? Who said it? Who said they should make an image to the beast? Those called the Founding Fathers. Who else? In this article link right here, we see exactly who said, let's make an image of Rome. In this one sentence alone, it's all told to us. The founders wanted the representative democracy of the Roman Republic. But they also thought that our capital city should look like Rome. So they wanted the whole government to be the Roman government, and they wanted it to look just like they wanted to make an image of Rome. And that's from the Maryland Classics Department. All right, I'll try to remember to put this link below as well. So it's pretty clear. This is the image. The Founding Fathers, call no man father, is not a coincidence. And the priesthood in the Vatican is called fathers. These are not all coincidences. Jesus didn't just say that for nothing. All right, so let's move on to the book of Revelation. Now that we have some understanding of this, let's see if we can get a clear understanding of who these characters are. All right, so here's a bunch of them right here. And we have what looks to be multiple characters in the book of Revelation, all associated with evil, right? So we got King Apollyon, the angel of the bottomless pit. Beast of the bottomless pit. The dragon, the first beast, the second beast, the false prophet, the whore, the eighth beast. All right, let's see. Chapter 9, 11, 12, 13, 13. Several chapters. 16, 19, 20, I think. Or 16, whatever. 16 something. The whore is 17, and the eighth beast 17. All right, so let's see who they are. Because there's been a lot of confusion about these bad guys. So we've already shown who the dragon is. The first and the second beast. Right? So we got Rome. We got the Roman Vatican. And we got Roman Washington. So let's see who the rest of these characters are, right? I'm going to try to show it to you in a very, very simple way and eliminate all the confusion. Which is what's going to happen with the beast in his image. So here we go. Here's 4 of our characters wrapped into one. All right? As we can see, they're one and the same. You got the dragon, 7 heads, yes. 10 horns, yes. 7 crowns upon the head, yep. So what happened? He gave his power, ceased to exist here, gave his power to the first beast empire, who now has these attributes. 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 kings, crowns upon the head, right? And then continues on. And has these additional attributes in the future, after it receives the power. All right? Now look at the 8th beast in chapter 17. 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 kings, 10 crowns. They both was and is not, yet is, or received a deadly wound and yet lives. Those are both saying the same thing. This empire lost its power, right? But it still existed. Still existed. So, some might be thinking, hey, Revelation 13, the first beast doesn't mention kings or crowns, right? And they'd be correct, except we're told very clearly in Revelation 17, 8 through 10, that the 7 heads are not only hills, which the woman sits, but they also represent 7 kings. And we can see here they all have 7 heads, 7, 7, 7. 7 heads represent 7 hills where the Rome sits, city of 7 hills, or Washington, and 7 kings, 7 crowns. All right? And so how do we know the first beast and the whore are the same character? Because when the angel in Revelation 17 says the great whore that sits on many waters, and the angel also says the waters which thou sawest where the whore sits, and we look through the whole chapter, there's not only no one sitting on water, we don't have anyone sitting on water in the whole book of Revelation other than the first beast. Which is why this whore is addressed by the angel at the beginning of chapter 17 as if we're already introduced. Right? He mentions like, hey, let me tell you about that woman. What woman? He doesn't mention anything because he's talking about the first beast. Right? The beast came up out of the sea. Right? Is now up out of the sea. Is obviously now on the waters. Right? Simple. So, up out of the sea, on the waters. Lost its power, but it's riding the 8th beast. But it's mentioned that it's on the waters. So it's an empire. It's not an empire, but it still lives. And it controls this beast. All right? Now, let's look at the second beast and the false prophet. Again, we've got a perfect match. Right? Second beast, false prophet. Both are directly associated with miracles before the beast. Yes, yes. Associated with the image of the beast. Yes, yes. Associated with the mark of the beast. Yes, yes. Thrown into the pit with the beast? Huh? But yes. Why? Why? Because they're the same character. Only one can get thrown in. Only one goes in the pit because they represent the same character. And note that after Revelation 13, the second beast is not mentioned at all. But after Revelation 13, the false prophet is directly associated with the beast every time he's mentioned. And he's thrown in the fire. All right? So, let's see, make sure I got all my notes here. Yeah, so because we know who the second empire is by the image, right, we can ask why they changed the false prophet. Right? Well, one thing we can note is that just like the whore, the false prophet is talked about as if we're already been introduced. Right? In the text, this character is suddenly there. Boom. Tied directly to the beast with the same characteristics as the second empire. Or the second beast. So this is how the Holy Spirit is telling us who exactly it is we're to look out for and not follow. False prophet represents God's word, but doesn't because it speaks like a dragon. So it's just pretending to feign itself as God's word. It's getting a little more interesting in a moment, too. So this is nothing new for God to change a name to tell us who someone represents. I mean, that's how Jacob got Israel as his name. You know, Abram was Abraham. And as examples. So he first tells us the empire is going to rise up. And then he gives us a name to recognize it, or it's characteristic of it. So now we can look and identify the angel of the bottomless pit in the nondescript beast mentioned chapter 11. Again, other than the dragon, we have only 2 characters in the whole book going into the lake of fire. That's not including, of course, the multitudes that worship and are deceived by them. So, notice when we read the text, John only sees 2 characters come out of the bottomless pit. These 2. Right? And because we can see here that there's only one beast or empire coming out of the bottomless pit, it makes sense that the whore, first beast, and the second and 8th beast, and the false prophet, these 2 characters, are working as one. When we see only one beast empire, the 8th beast referred to as coming from the bottomless pit. So look, these are obviously tied into one system. Okay? And we're told that this 8th beast, which is of these, being controlled by this one, so there's 2 separate entities working as one. There's one empire. See? One empire that came out of the pit right there. Okay, so the first beast loses his power. Still alive. The second beast, who comes up with 2 horns, right? Where's the 2 horns? Well, after it came up with 2 horns, what happened? It got all the power of the first beast before it. See? First beast got its power from the dragon. Boom, has all those attributes, and then gets these till it receives its deadly wound. And it's dropped down to no more empire. And now the second beast comes up with 2 horns and then gets all the power of the beast before it. So obviously it has all the attributes as well. So these are all 3 one system that's basically jumped ship from one to the next, or has migrated. And the whore supported this one the whole time growing. So first beast is on water, the whore is on water, that makes sense. The 8th beast is the only empire existing, which comes out of the bottomless pit, which is these. Because this is the beast that was and yet is not, and yet is. Even he is the 8th, because the 8th is all the power of this. So here we can see a sequential rulership laid out for us using 2 verses from Revelation 17. All right, we got Revelation 17:10. There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen. Boom, 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 boom. And some may want to debate who these kings may be. It's irrelevant. What we're looking at is here. And one is. When John wrote this, one is. Okay, so this is the past. He's talking about the present. One is. The Roman Empire is, right? When he wrote that, that's who is. And the other's not yet come. When he comes, he must continue a short space. All right? And the empire that was, the beast that was and is not, it's not an empire anymore, and yet it's still around. Even he is the 8th. This power is here now, and it's of the 7. It's of these 7 kings. But there's no kingship here in Washington. The kingship still sits here. If you can see that, I pray you do. And for those still struggling, Washington, D.C., here's an additional one. I mean, New York is what? The Empire State. Well, if that's true, then we have to ask ourselves, what empire is it a state of? And there's only one possible answer. And I would say unironically that George Washington wrote in 1784 that New York, in 1784, okay, he said New York was the seat of the empire. So he's already talking about empireship. And it's not even a dozen years past the signing. Or it's the celebration year anyway. So what we're seeing with the relationship of the characters in chapter 17 is a result of what happens in chapter 13 between the first and second beast. So when we're reading these, we got to kind of pay attention to this, because we see the first beast empire receives a deadly wound and lost its kingship and power, right? And yet it's still alive, right? So this empire loses its power and it's oddly still around, which the Roman Catholic Church has done. It's done exactly that. Then we see the second empire, the eighth beast, gets all the power of the one before it. Right? And then it mirror images itself after the first beast while gaining the same power over a very short period of time. So this is the way for prophecy to tell us that this empire is still alive, is still running the show, because this is riding this, right? It's steering this. It's controlling it. We ride a large beast of any kind. That's the power. And it can crush us at any time. But we control it, right? So that's what's happening there. That's just the symbolism is telling us. Some may be aware of that position as well. So it's telling us it's still alive, but it's set up a storefront somewhere else to rule from. So as a result, in chapter 17, we see the first beast, the horse, steering the second beast, which has all the power of the first beast before it. The eighth beast now has all the power that this one had, that it initially got from here. That's why it has all that symbolism in the horns and everything. So we can now see that though they're different empires, they're one and the same entity, which is also why we see even he is the eighth and is of the seven, because he's of these, but he's literally of these. All right? So it's of Rome. And if we keep in mind that only 3 characters are thrown in the pit: the beast, the false prophet in Revelation 19:20, and the dragon, which in this case, in Revelation 1 through 3, chapter 20, verse 1 through 3, is specifically talking about the serpent, not the dragon empire, because we know that dragon empire gave its power to here. Of course, we know who's running the show behind the scenes here. Same guy. But that explains why there's only 2. An empire coming out of the bottomless pit, there's only one, because there's only one. All right? So once we realize there's only 2 getting thrown into the pit, other than the devil, or the lake of fire, then it simplifies what would it be looking at here? Right? If you only get 2 people or 2 characters thrown into the fiery lake, that narrows down how many possibilities we can have of lead characters. All right, and additionally, when we know that the dragon is Rome, and the beast is Rome 2.0, we'll call it, then Revelation 17:18 aligns perfectly when it tells us the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. And when John wrote it, which is written in the present tense, when John wrote that book, this is that great city right there that ruled the kings of the earth. This is the one, because one is, right? This is the one. So we can see who these guys are. And once we realize there's only 2 characters, and we align the characters, which we saw in the previous slides, feel free to stop and go back to them and look at them a little closer and compare them to the text. So here's our image. Here's our empire. Don't worship This one, don't get caught up in that system, and don't be willing to give your life for this one. Because if you're going to give your life for it, you're worshiping it. This is going to perish real soon. We're at the doors. It's close. This is going to perish, and this with it. All right? And the mark is coming real soon. And we'll be looking at that in one of our next presentations as well. Peace of the living God.